All right. So let's talk about Tomb Raider for a bit. We'll be talking. If I put this up separate on YouTube, this is we're done with the game. We finished all the Tomb Raider games. We did all 12. You didn't remember the fact that she had to keep the manor. Oh yeah. Wasn't there some DLC or something about that where she had to like follow some kind of clue in order to actually get it? Some crap like that. I don't remember. But yeah, so that was a hell of a thing. We started the Tomb Raider series back in March of last year, and I think outside of like maybe the Metal Gear series, boy, there hasn't been a series of games that I've touched that's taken me this long and also had this many installments. Time for Lara Croft Go. I think I'm good on that. I think I'm good on that one. I think we'll just kind of stick with the main series for right now and call that good. Yeah, you're right though. I mean, there are spin-offs. My goal was always to do kind of the core games and then just kind of like continue on from there. So I'm happy with what we ended up doing. But yeah, that took a long time. I started with the original 1996 Tomb Raider on PlayStation back in March of 2021. So it's almost taken me a full year, streaming off and on. And I did take some breaks. I was streaming several different games at the same time. But yeah, it's taken us this long to actually get through this entire series. And that's a hell of a feat. I mean, I don't think I've streamed any other series where it's gone through that span of years. Like I said, outside of Metal Gear. Maybe Doom, if you want to count that, but even that I haven't done all the installments on. I'm still missing the 2016 from my catalog. And then, I don't know, Devil May Cry, kinda. I mean, the first game was like in 2003, 2002 or something like that, and then it just like goes up to today, so it's not even quite as long. But yeah, that's 12 games of Tomb Raider, and it was a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a thing. Let me just say that much. But they were all pretty much very good. I don't think I really super disliked any of them all that much. I had my problems. I had my issues with a handful of them, but I really enjoyed playing through the entirety of the series. And that's probably not going to happen again for a while. I mean, definitely not on stream, but it's definitely not going to happen. like, like just me playing off stream for a while now. Mario's the only series that would take longer. I mean, yeah, but like, what would you even count? Like I guess the core Mario games are still a lot. But I'm thinking like it's all the spin-offs and stuff. Gonna toss in a Luigi's Mansion every now and again or something like that. But I mean, it's a lot of games to go through the entirety of the Tomb Raider series. I was surprised I stuck with it because I was thinking when I first started it, I'm like, all right, I just want to do the core games. I think we'll just do, and I mean like, the ones developed by Core. We'll just do those 5 or 6. I wasn't even, considering Angel of Darkness at the time. And I thought maybe that might be it. I thought that could have been it for me. But then after I finished up with, the Core games, I'm like, well, let's see if we can keep going. And we just went through the Legend series, and then I did the new. By the time I was getting through the Legend series, and I was starting to consider doing the reboot trilogy, I didn't even know that I was going to do it. What's the biggest turd in the series? Well, funny you should ask. I did set up a tier maker list. So we have these here. Almost didn't make it through, but surprisingly all the laughs kept you up, so you're happy you stayed up as long. I'm happy you were here, Andy, and thank you for staying up and sticking around as long as you have, but you have a good night. I do appreciate it, and hopefully we'll catch you again for another game. I don't know what it's going to be. I might be done with my adventuring days for right now. Maybe I'll do an Uncharted or something like that. I don't know. But I don't even know what I'm going to stream next. It's that blind at this point. We're going to be flying into some new territory eventually. I don't know what I'm going to play next. I'm going to play something, obviously. I will be back tomorrow, but yeah, Star Wars, maybe. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about doing some hack and slash, which might be into Force Unleashed, so we'll see what it is. Also, Tomb Raider featuring Lara Croft. So the other Tomb Raiders. Well, I don't know. I guess maybe you could count like an Indiana Jones or something. He could be a Tomb Raider. Nathan Drake can be a Tomb Raider. But yeah, we'll just have to play it by ear. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm not too sure what my next big thing is going to be. I'm definitely not sure what my next series is going to be. That's going to take some thinking, because this one was tying me up for the most part. I wasn't playing really any other series throughout the entirety of doing this Tomb Raider stuff. I mean, I'd jump on to stuff every now and again. I guess I did Dead Space, but that's a 3-game series. That doesn't really count. Mass Effect Legendary Edition, but technically I guess that's one game. I don't know. Pitfall on Atari 2600. Now there's an idea. Let's find out when we find out. Talk to you later. All right. Well, you have a good night. Again, thank you. And we'll catch you next time. I'm sure I'll figure it out by then, because I'll be streaming something. So I made a tier maker list. This is all the core development. Well, I got to stop saying that, but because the mainline series, because when I say core, sometimes it has a connotation that I mean like the games developed by core. But let's start from the back. And we'll see how it goes. Closest to the left-hand side, I'm going to like better. So if there's anything that's in the same like letter ranking, if I put it to the right, I don't like it as much as whatever's going to go to the left. So we just finished up with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I just explained my review of that. I thought it was okay. I thought it was an average game. C is average. I know it looks far down to the bottom there, but you got to understand, C is an average ranking. S is going to be the best of the best. Damn near perfect. A is going to be pretty damn good. B is going to be okay. C is going to be average. D is going to be kind of shite. So that's just how we're going with that. I already talked about my reasonings for Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I think it's an average game. I think it's a step down from the previous one. It doesn't wow me. There's not a whole lot that sort of upped the ante with this one. So it was just kind of like, eh. But I still thought it was okay, and it was definitely playable. Next one we have is Rise of the Tomb Raider. Rise of the Tomb Raider, I actually enjoyed quite a bit. I thought the story was good. I liked the characters for the most part, excluding Jonah. Love the music, love the locale, love the visuals. The visuals were wowing me. Love the artifact. You supposed C's on the fridge. Well, Tomb Raider should be, or Shadow of the Tomb Raider should be right up there then, huh? We'll be proud of that one. And everything else above it. But anyway, Rise of the Tomb Raider, I was quite impressed by. There was a lot to like with that game. Still kind of had some hiccups. I thought I don't know. Especially in my original playthrough, I thought there was just way too much to do. And a lot of the side stuff is kind of mundane, as we were talking about. So there's just kind of like that, I don't know. I don't know if I dig this all that much. But I think for the most part, it was a pretty damn good game. I'm going to pop that one in the A, because I think that one was actually A worthy. It's my favorite of the reboot trilogy for sure. And I like almost everything about it. I love the combat. I like the puzzles. I like the look of it. I like the sound of it. Music. I like the story. Like I said, it has that kind of awe-inspiring factor that I get when I watch the best of like artifact, archaeology, exploration, action, adventure movies. You know, so that one definitely, I think, deserves an A, in my opinion. Tomb Raider 2013, I had a lot of problems with this game. I did not like the characters. I found every side character annoying, and I even found Lara annoying at points. Yeah, there was too many falling sequences where you're like falling down a cliff or a waterfall. Too many scripted, like linear sequences like that. They were just kind of like, eh. Rise was just super friggin' long. Yeah, it was. And like I said, that kind of like adds into the whole fact that it had a lot of side stuff that wasn't all that great. I do think that the optional tombs were pretty good for that one. But yeah, it is a longer game, which is why I don't consider it perfect. Because there's just some side stuff that kind of bloats it a little bit. If it could be a little bit more trimmed up, I think I might like it a little bit better. But overall, I still think it's up there. I do think it's one of the better Tomb Raider games. Anyway, going back to 2013. 2013, I had a lot of problems with it. It was a step in new territory. I know that they had to freshen up the series and they had to do something else. They took a lot of bold steps. They did the whole survival crafting thing while it was still new. So that was nice. That was good. Didn't like the locale that much. They didn't change it up a lot. I thought it was interesting when we got to like the World War II era bases and all that stuff. I thought that was kind of visually a little bit more dynamic and definitely felt out of place on the standard just kind of like jungle look of everything. But overall, I wasn't terribly impressed with anything about it. And I guess maybe part of this is coming from the fact that I'm replaying the game too. This one wasn't really fresh for me. I think I might have liked it a little bit more when it first came out, but replaying it recently, again, didn't really care for the story, didn't care for the artifact, which wasn't really much of anything. It was just kind of Yamatai and the queen, but there wasn't like a really hard set artifact or item, no MacGuffin. It was kind of just the island itself. Interesting concept. I do think the Bermuda Triangle is an interesting kind of set piece, but then it just kind of was, everything was on an island. Wasn't terribly crazy about that. Insane Cultist was fun. Action was fun. I thought the actual combat of the game was fine, but it was not one of my favorites. And I just found everybody annoying in the game. They all annoyed me. So, boy, do I want to put it in D? I don't know. I didn't like it that much, but I don't know if it's D worthy. It's a serviceable game. You know what? I'm going to put it on the lower end of C. If anything else goes into C, I'm probably going to put Tomb Raider 2013 at the end of that on the right-hand side. I don't think it was D worthy though. But that takes care of the reboot trilogy. Overall, I think they're decent games, but I do think that the only standout in there is going to be Rise. Okay, going to Underworld, tail end of the Legend trilogy. These games overall were a little bit, I don't know. In retrospect, playing them over again, I don't know that I like them as much as I used to. I will say though that Underworld is definitely the best of them, and I actually like that one quite a bit. I love the level design. I love being able to kind of like traverse the actual levels. I do like how I have to think about where I'm gonna go, as opposed to, let's say, the new Tomb Raider games where it's kind of like brain dead, where you have to move. Like, it's pretty obvious in most cases where you're going to be moving. So the fact that you kind of had to think about it, like which jumps you wanted to take and how you're going to hook onto stuff, I do think that was a pretty cool little facet of it. I don't know though. It's a little bit on the shorter side. I don't think the story was really heavily reliant on the previous two games. So that sort of weighs in it for me. Like, I played Underworld, I think, before I played Legend, and I was really lost. And if you're taking it as sort of a self-contained game, I don't know if I consider that a good story. Like, if the majority of it can't be self-contained and entertaining in its own right, but it has to be so reliant on the previous ones, I'm not too sure. I don't think I like it as much to put it in the A category, but I'm going to put it in B because I think it was decent and I liked the stuff, a lot of the gameplay mechanics, but wasn't quite there for me. Next up, Tomb Raider Anniversary. This is the remake of the original Tomb Raider game. Boy, we had some major problems with this one. This one was not a fun experience in the fact that I was playing the PC version and we were having some major issues, including one glitch that prevented me from actually progressing in the game, and I had to stop playing the PC version and I had to play the PS3 version instead because that one was less glitchy than the PC version. I don't know how much of that I can like factor in though. Like, should I factor in that it's a bad port? Though people were saying to me that they were like, while I was streaming that game, that they were glitchy across the board. Glitchy as hell, yeah. In Sev we trust. Okay. All right. Well, we'll take my opinions to heart then. Overall, I thought it was an okay remake. I do think that there was a lot of content cut out. I was a little bit disappointed that some of the levels were so streamlined. There's a lot of the major stuff was there, but it felt like they took out a lot of content from the original game, and I found that kind of sad. And I was also disappointed in the fact that we could have had some good boss battles. Like, they could have improved on the Tomb Raider boss battles with Larson and Pierre and, you know, a lot of the other guys. But instead, they just boil them down to quick time events. That was kind of shitty. I don't know that I like that. And then we had some bullshit with the grapple hook. That was kind of a big point of contention, I think, with the Legend trilogy. You, Daler, you I know you don't like that shit. But the grapple hook got a little iffy in a couple of the spots, and I don't think that was as fun as the game devs were probably thinking it would be. Also didn't like the combat as much as the one that preceded it in Legend. I think Legend out of all of them probably had the best combat. In Anniversary, it was kind of just like standard, and then every once in a while you get a chance to dodge and do like a critical attack. But I mean, it was serviceable. Disappointing in some regards, as being a remake. And yeah, I feel like in spots where they could have actually made the game better from the original, they sort of held back and didn't end up doing everything they could have. And QuickTime events are kind of shitty anyway. I'm going to give Anniversary... Oh boy, we're going to have a lot of... C's going to get a little crowded, I think. I might like it a little bit better than Shadow. That's just coming off of it, like right now. I might change my mind after a couple months and having time to think on this. But yeah, I might like it a little bit better than Shadow. Freaking grapple hook. Yeah, it wasn't that fun. And speaking of freaking grapple hook, we have Tomb Raider Legend. The first installment of the Legend trilogy. Oh my god, I had problems with this one. I really did. This game was super short, and I didn't think the story was all that interesting. I did think that the dynamic of introducing like the storyline with Lara's mother was kind of interesting. Didn't care for the side characters. Didn't care for what's her face, the blonde goth. Didn't like the smug dude that was voiced by Rina Romano. And I don't know. It's had some cool and interesting locale changes, like the whole Japanese skyscraper. And then, you know, most of it was just kind of going back to the jungle. And then there was like some Siberia stuff, like the stuff on the train. It was fine. The combat was actually really fun in this game. And I really liked hopping off enemies and doing headshots and stuff. So that was cool. Those goddamn bike sequences, though, those were a pain in the ass. Didn't care for that. Really didn't care for that. I think they improved it on the PS3 version when the sort of like HD edition came out. But I played the original version, and it was just ass. It was terrible. Awful. Hated it. Those segments were bad. We goof on the grapple hook with how bad and poorly implemented that could be sometimes, but I really didn't care for the bike segments. They were really frustrating. But the bike was broke. Yeah, because like certain enemies could take away all of your health in a couple hits, and there wasn't really anything you could do about it. You couldn't dodge, you couldn't like hide behind anything. You're just riding behind them. You don't really have a choice. And it's not like there's no sort of advantage you can take because you can't do manual shooting. You can't like pick your targets necessarily. You just kind of have to drive up behind somebody and hope you don't get shot. It was really RNG heavy on the original version, and I didn't care for it. But yeah, there's a lot I didn't like about this one. I didn't like a lot of the levels. I didn't like the King Arthur Wonderland Park or the thing under London. Again, I thought the Japanese skyscraper was an interesting locale, but I don't know how I cared about the level all that much. Didn't really care for any of the jungle stuff. Didn't care for the little bits at the end there, at the very end in the temple. Didn't like the characters, Zip and Alistair. Oh god, they were annoying. That's something that they fixed in Underworld, which I actually appreciated in Underworld. Anniversary was a remake of the first game, so you didn't really have to rely on it that much. But I hated Zip and Alistair in my ear constantly. It did ruin the feel of a Tomb Raider game. I feel like the best Tomb Raider games feel isolated and almost kind of have like an eerie, spooky feeling to them. But didn't care for it. Didn't care for it. I'd hate to say it because I know that there's a lot of people that like Tomb Raider Legend, but I really didn't enjoy my time playing it as much as the others. So I'm going to give it a D because I don't think I want to play that one again after streaming it. It was okay for the most part, but I was mostly bored by it. Didn't like the characters, didn't like the level design, didn't like the mechanics, didn't like the bike. So there we go. The first D, and probably going to be the only one actually, because I don't think anything else really fits in there. Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness. This one was the big black sheep of the Core games. Last game developed by Core. This was the one that everybody shat on when it first came out. Exclusive to the PS2 when it first came out, eventually got released on PC. Fortunately, with the PC version, you can mod it, which is exactly what I did. So there's a huge caveat with this one, in that I played the PC version modded with the rescued mod pack, which fixes a lot of issues. It fixes the running issue in the game. Lara no longer has to build up to a run. She starts sprinting, or not sprinting, but she starts running immediately instead of building up to it. Jumps are fine-tuned. She has the dual pistols. So there was a lot of fixes with this one. I recognize that this one, it took some bold steps doing the whole NPC dialogue thing. And I actually do think that there were some interesting facets of it. Really good soundtrack, fully orchestrated from what I remember. So that was impressive. The Curtis segments weren't bad. They were fairly short. I didn't think he was hard to control or anything like that. It just kind of sucked that you don't have your inventory from Lara. So you kind of have to work with like a couple of health packs when you get to him. But fortunately, they keep it pretty light. But overall, I actually didn't hate my time playing Angel of Darkness. There was a couple frustrating spots. Like there was a timed gate that you had to run across like some platforms for that I remember not liking. But otherwise, with the rescued mod pack, it wasn't that bad. So again, huge caveat when I consider this one, but I actually think I liked it better than Anniversary. Don't think it's a great game by any means. And it has an open end. You could tell they were trying to go for some sort of plot line that led into another trilogy that didn't pan out. So you just kind of like, you're left with your dick in your hand by the end of the game. But it wasn't bad what I played. Again, rescued mod pack. If you ever want to play it on PC with the rescued mod pack. Oh boy. So that gets us to Chronicles. Yeah, we're coming up to Chronicles. What about Chronicles? Chronicles is a little bit glitchy. Sucks. Shut up. You don't even know. You've never even played these games before. But I actually like Chronicles quite a bit. Now, I think there was a glitch that I ended up running into where I couldn't progress. Like one of the androids at the very end of the level, like stopped following me or something, or he couldn't drop a certain item, and that ended up screwing me over, and I actually had to restart that level and redo the whole stream. So I like played the same level twice in a row on stream. So that kind of was frustrating, but it actually works pretty well as an anthology. I know it's Chronicles and it chronicles like different periods in Lara's life, but it works. I love anthology anything. I love anthology novels, movies, games. And this has an anthology feel because it's a different story, like small self-contained stories that work as chapters in the game. And I actually like the variety in it. The Russian submarine, the village with young Lara, the high security building of Von Croy's, the like kind of more traditional stuff in Rome. I just actually thought it was a really good game. It's just that it got kind of glitchy, so that sort of sucked. But for the most part, I thought it was pretty good. I don't know if I consider it like A-worthy. I might like a little more than Underworld. So I think I'm going to pop it there. High B, almost an A. A- if I could give it a A-, but I wouldn't. I can't. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Oh, I got a thumbs up. Okay. We got Daler's approval, so that's good. Tomb Raider Last Revelation. For the longest time, I always considered this to be the best Tomb Raider sequel outside of the original. I don't know if I can consider it that anymore. Boy. I really like this one. I can definitely see the effort that went into crafting the story. It was deeper than the previous games. It was a coherent story. It felt like a big adventure. It had that Tomb Raider feel. Stuff felt eerie. Stuff felt like there was consequences. There was a lot to like with this one, but boy, is it long. And goddamn, if some of those levels don't get really boring. And I got lost on a couple of them. They were trying an open world aspect before open world stuff was pretty common. Because you could like backtrack through levels, and it was pretty open. There was a lot of stuff in like, was it Thebes? I don't remember what it was, but one of those cities, and you just kind of like a good portion of the game, like several hours, was dedicated to kind of like roving around that city and going into several tombs that were in the area. But it was so confusing. and there wasn't really, outside of going to Jean Claude, I don't know, her friend, and getting a couple hints every now and again, there wasn't really a good indicator of where you needed to go. So I think I just got lucky and I hit a few nice spots. The game definitely starts off strong, but boy, that middle section where you get into like kind of the more open area, that's a little long. It's a little long. And then when the plagues start breaking loose, then it gets a little more interesting, but I don't know that I love most of that. I still think it's a really strong sequel, and I think maybe it's probably the most effort put into a sequel for the core games after the original Tomb Raider. But it has its problems. Boy, that being said, though, I don't think I could put it in A category. Question is, do I like it more than Chronicles? I have to think about, okay, I'm thinking in my head, what would I replay? Would I replay The Last Revelation or would I replay Chronicles? I think I'd replay Chronicles. I'm going to pop it right behind Chronicles. Good sequel. Like I said, there's a lot of effort put into it. I think it's a pretty good game. It's a pretty good Tomb Raider game. It's just, boy, it's super long and it's got a lot of vaguity in it. And it is hard to know what to do sometimes. It's actually pretty difficult too. The only saving grace with this game is it was the first one on the PlayStation. Oh, which by the way, I should say that all these core games, I played the PlayStation versions. I did not do the PC versions where you could save anywhere. But this was the first one on PlayStation where you could have multiple save files, I believe. Yeah, so... so that leads us to our final three. We got Tomb Raider 3 here, Adventures of Lara Croft. I really like this game, actually. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like because this was one of the ones where I didn't play most of it. I think I played most of the other games, and a lot of them I didn't complete. But this one was the one where I like rented it, and I thought it was too hard when I originally played it, and then I just put it away and never thought about it again. But boy, I really liked it. I think it might be my favorite sequel from the core games. Just maybe. The story is incomprehensible. It makes no sense. Like anything that's going on. Like some Scottish guy sends Lara out on a chance meeting to find alien rocks, and then she gets all the alien rocks, and then he turns into a spider mutant. For some reason. I don't know. That's about as much as I gathered from it. But I love the allusions to like The Thing. Like the Thing, the movie from the 80s. Like that whole Antarctica section was basically like Lara Croft in The Thing. That was great. I love the Area 51 level. I thought the island level was pretty cool. And then the opening and like Beijing or something. I don't know. Overall, I thought the game was really cool. I just thought it was kind of hard, and there's some bullshit in there with like insta-death. Yeah, no, I was gonna say that. I was just about to mention it. It did have the save crystals, but it didn't become a problem after a while. I found like if you like saved one crystal from each level, by the end of the game you have a surplus. Because by the end of the game, I finished the game with probably 20 plus crystals that I didn't use. So they give you plenty. Sometimes you have to hunt for them, but you definitely get enough, I think. I think it's a lot harder when you're first starting out in the game. But eventually you get so many that you don't have to worry about it. I mean, I wasn't saving constantly. I was still being frugal with my saves, but it wasn't as big of an issue as I was thinking it was going to be. Because when I read that, and I was doing the PlayStation version. This was not PC where you could save anywhere an unlimited amount of times. You get limited save crystals. You could save wherever you want. You just use up your save crystal. It's like an ink ribbon in the original Resident Evil games. So limited saves, but they give you a lot. And by the end of the game, you're really rolling in it. So you could be less frugal by the end of it. It's hard to start off in. And depending on the levels that you do, you could end up screwing yourself. I do think like some of the levels, like the Area 51 could be a little bullshit every now and again, but I do think like that London level was really brutal. With like the subways that can like hit you in an instant, and like the trap doors and flames and all that shit. So if you save like some of the harder ones for last, it becomes a little bit less of an issue, and just get your surplus from the earlier levels. But yeah, there's a lot of tricks going on in that one. It's definitely a game made for fans of the Tomb Raider series. Would not recommend it to a newbie. There was a couple people I think when I was streaming this one that said that was their first Tomb Raider, and I'm like, oh boy, that must have been a hell of an experience. I do think this one deserves an A the rank though. Do I like it better than Rise? Maybe not, just because the story is so incomprehensible, but I do think it's pretty damn solid gameplay. Okay, last two. Tomb Raider 2, starring Lara Croft. This one was alright. This one I felt was a pretty good and serviceable sequel. Really combat intensive, especially compared to the rest of the series, which have stronger puzzle elements. This one was less about the puzzles and more about the combat. The only thing is, in line with that, the enemies were really tough. They beefed them up, and at the same time, they give you limited ammunition. So it almost sort of became like a survival horror. That being said, though, I think it became less of a problem. It was another one of those things. It's kind of like the save crystals. If you're frugal with it at the early parts of the game, you don't have to worry by the end of it. I thought the whole dragon temple at the end of the game was really cool. It just was really long, and I think that's my biggest gripe about the actual level design, was just that last section in the dragon temple. It went on too long. Really cool parts, and I thought it felt mystical, and again, it's one of those awe-inspiring things. Love that scene where the cult leader, whatever his name was, the Italian guy, stabbed himself with a knife. Got real strong vibes of Temple of Doom. So it had some amazing storytelling visually, and some cool levels. Love the sunken cruise liner. That was great. I think that was one of the highlights of that game. So it had a lot going for it. I just think that the combat was a little bit too intense. It is a little bit on the harder side. No save crystals, no save spots, but you only get the one save slot. And if you find yourself deep into the level and you're deep in the shit where you don't have enough ammo or something like that, you are screwed. So you got to be real careful with it. You think, oh, I could save anywhere. Well, you only get the one spot. So that does kind of that limits your possibilities. Last few levels of 2 are nuts. They are, yeah. Real cool final boss, though, that dragon. I think, like I said, it's just kind of that awe-inspiring factor. I think Tomb Raider 2 is probably one of the ones that does it the best. The only other one I could think of that kind of maybe has that is Last Revelation, where you're fighting Set, an actual Egyptian god. But you're not even really fighting him. You're just trying to progress through the levels. So maybe even that is kind of a letdown just because it's not combat and it's more platforming. I don't know. But building up to a battle with a dragon, that's pretty damn cool. The only thing is that those levels are, like you said, they're brutal, but they're also really, really long. It's an endurance test. And yeah, you could really screw yourself over in that game. The more I think about it, the more I actually like it. I'm gonna put it maybe a smidge. I'm gonna put it behind Tomb Raider 3, but just by a smidge. I would say they'd probably be neck and neck if I could put one on top of the other. they'd be kind of neck and neck. But overall, I think that it's a pretty fun sequel, and I think I like it quite a bit. All right, here's the last one. The original Tomb Raider from 1996. There's a lot to like with this one. I do think that it's sort of a simple story, but I think it's an effective one. It's actually coherent. You know what's going on. There's an antagonist. Lara's a protagonist. You get motivations. There are interesting characters. This was the one that started it all in terms of how the gameplay, and it's borrowing a lot from Indiana Jones and other things. But this is one that kind of set the precedent for the varying locales. You get the stuff in Egypt, Mexico. You get the Lost World, in a geothermal valley, which keeps coming back up in these games. Simple but effective level design. Really fun to play through. Decent combat for the time. Decent puzzle elements. Lots of nice platforming. It doesn't ever feel too difficult. And then it also has decent enough level design where I feel like if it feels like when you're progressing it, it's like it feels like an actual adventure. Like you're discovering a bunch of new things. Is it crude by today's standards? Yes. But I think it's a really solid game, which is why I'm going to put it at S. That's my only perfect game. Pretty much perfect game. I can't think of too many things that I want to complain about with the original Tomb Raider. I played the console version, which has the save points, which, yes, I know save points are a pain, but honestly, it wasn't that bad. And then it adds a little bit to the challenge as opposed to just being able to save anywhere. The only time where the save crystals became a pain was at the very last gauntlet when you're trying to escape Natla's Island, when you're trying to escape Atlantis. You only get like a couple, and there's some really brutal like segments where you have to run through several spots. You get good at it. I had to retry it like 5 or 6 times, but you get good at it to the point where you can kind of progress through each segment more and more without any difficulty. But overall, I gotta say, I really like that game. It's the only one that I've ever wanted to go back and play through while I've been playing the other ones. Like, I haven't had that feeling about like wanting to go back, and I actually booted it up. I'm like, let me try this on emulator. I played it for like an hour or two, and I'd probably play it again. A lot of replay value for that in me. So, which is the one that you had to stop and restart on console. That was Anniversary. That was the remake one. That was the one I played on PC, and I had the actual like broken glitch where I couldn't progress the level, and then I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to plug in the PS3 version. And the PS3 version worked fine. It didn't look as good, but it worked fine. Actually, the lighting was a little bit better, but it didn't have the anti-aliasing, and it looked kind of rough and ugly in some spots. But for the most part, So there you go. That's my personal tier ranking for all these games. The only one that I think is like truly a pinnacle, the series peaked early, but the one that I think is fun, a lot of replay value, good level design, good mechanics, Tomb Raider. It's also the one I've always said, well, people have asked me, because I've had several people asking me, you know, if you were looking to get in the series, which one would you do? I'd go for the original Tomb Raider, 1996. If you want a little bit more challenge, do the console version on Saturn or PlayStation. If you're not willing to take, if you want to do like let's call that hard mode. Hard mode would be console version. If you want to do like normal easy mode, do PC, because you can save anywhere with that. And then I think really strong sequels got to be Rise, Tomb Raider 3, Tomb Raider 2. I think those are all good. Graph looks great. You flip Angel with Legend though. Let me see. Yeah, here's the thing though, and I don't know if you were here while I was describing it. Angel of Darkness, when it originally came out, was an awful game. I recognize that. I know that it was completely broken, but I was playing the PC version modded with the restored or the rescued mod pack, and it fixed all of the major complaints of that game. Doesn't have the control issues, doesn't have the loading issues. Lara gets her dual pistols back. It fixes a lot of stuff. I think you should try it. I think you should give it a try. It wasn't that hard to install. You just install the game, you get the mod pack, you toss some files into the local file location of the game, and you're good to go. Yeah, it still kind of has a weird, kind of stupid story, and yeah, you got to play as Curtis, but those sections were short and they weren't as bad. Legend I didn't care for. I really hated Legend. For the most part. Like I said, I thought it was an okay game, but yeah, my strong sequels, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Tomb Raider 3, Tomb Raider 2, thought those were all very fun. They capture the spirit of Tomb Raider, and they all have good points. Just a couple things here and there that kind of brings them down a little bit from perfection, but overall not too bad. Chronicles, Last Revelation, Underworld, really good games, better than average. Chronicles with its glitches, Last Revelation with its dull and long levels feel kind of aimless. Underworld with its not so great story that's reliant on the previous games, and then just some of the gameplay mechanics were kind of iffy. Angel of Darkness, really fun, feels like a upgraded core version game, obviously because it is. Big caveat with the rescued mod pack. Fixes a lot of the game issues. Still pretty good. Anniversary for trimming down too much from the original game and not doing enough to make it better than the original. Shadow of the Tomb Raider for being just kind of average, not really living up to Rise, and then just kind of feeling plotting. Tomb Raider 2013 for being annoying and too on rails. Legend for pissing me off. So there you go. Honestly, though, original's top tier 100%. Oh yeah. I think so too. Like I said, I think it's the only one that I really want to replay, like sooner rather than later. It would be something that I'd voluntarily want to go through and play. And I just think, yeah, it's a fun game. It's really easy to get into. It never feels terribly difficult. Feels like an adventure. There's some great set pieces and some really cool stuff in there. Visuals, obviously, they're going to be old. They're going to be a little bit crude, but I think we can look past that. I mean, if you really just enjoy video games and don't care about like graphics and all that shit, solid game, really fun. But that's my list, and that was 12 Tomb Raider games, and that almost took a year, and I think we almost took an hour talking about it. So that's long enough. I appreciate everybody that was here. Glad that there were people that stuck around just to hear me talk about my experience with these games. I hope you all have similar opinions. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't care. I don't care if you don't like it or not. Go play these games, though, if you have some time on your own and haven't played them before, because they're actually pretty damn good. That's going to be it for me, though. We've been at it for a while. It took us a few hours to get through Shadow of the Tomb Raider and then just a big discussion. But boy, this was a long one. I felt it needed the discussion just because of how long it took me to get through this series. And it was a real adventure. But anyway, thank you guys so much for sticking around. I'm going to take off. Why don't we give Scoob... I don't think he's streamed in a few days. I'm going to give Scoob a little raid here. And we'll call it a night. But thank you guys. Thank you, Daler. Thank you, Solidus. Everybody else. Thank you, B. Be known. I had to check and see which one it was. You guys take care. Thanks for sticking around. Let's go raid Scoob real quick. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll decide what I'm going to do. It's going to be like a Ratchet or a Sly game. I think I'm going to flip a coin and we'll find out which one it is. Anyway, you deserve to open that Tomb Raider action figure after all that. It's still in the packaging. I haven't opened it. Maybe. I kind of like the packaging, though. It looks pretty slick. But maybe you're right. Maybe I should crack it open after all this time. Let it breathe. Let it breathe. But thank you guys. You guys are awesome. And have a good night. See you guys next time.